Guys, welcome. Thank you for coming. First announcement, if you missed it earlier, Bontrager orders are mostly in. There's a couple back-ordered items. However, check with front desk before you leave because they actually have your name on them. Thanks to Summit for separating for us, for collating, all that stuff. My understanding from Menko is that the Pioneer order goes in tomorrow, today or tomorrow, and should be here hopefully in a week or so. And again, thanks to everyone on the team and the club. You guys really stepped up big on that, and we will make sure to make use of that for anybody at the bottom. But Pioneer really, really likes us now, which is a good thing. We want to keep them on our friendly side because they're a good company. Let's see, what other announcements? Oh, no, we'll get to that at the race thing. I think that's it. We're starting to do more team tactics stuff on training rides, so try to come out to those if you can. Especially the ladies, we need to have more than like 2 to sort of make it functionally useful for you guys. Unless you want to sit on the back of the guys and then beat them in the sprint, which is totally fine with me. I think that's it on announcements. Anybody have announcements or any commentary? Brandon? Final payments for camp coming to you guys soon.
And it's gonna be cheap. So.
The official t-shirt from camp. If you didn't go, you missed this, so too bad for you.
And if you did go and didn't get one, let me
know. Okay, so couple cool topics tonight. I'll try to get through quick because I know you guys don't want to hang out and listen to me. Obviously, Chico is next weekend. Raise your hand if you're going to Chico. Yeah. Super fun race. Really excited to have everyone go. Hopefully you guys all sorted hotels because I dropped the hotels that I got. Okay, moving on. Don't look ahead, don't look ahead. Okay, tonight's topics. Racing update, training update, Chico, and the team terminology project, which we'll get to. That's sort of a work in progress, and I'll be talking to you guys and soliciting input and feedback on that. 2-time defending GC champions at Chico, and actually this year I think we could possibly win 2 or more categories. Fingers crossed, you guys, things go our way and we have good luck and good racing, but that would be really cool. Okay, so moving along. Tonight's training plan information. Folks in HIT are both on build phase, which means you're doing 2 to 3 times a week of VO2 high intensity work in addition to usually it's high intensity rest, high intensity, or high intensity rest day. I try to mix it up so you guys get a little different stimulus. And if you have a more positive impact, things that matter to me are, as you guys do these workouts, give me some feedback. You know, hey, that workout was horrible. I hate you. Hey, that was my favorite thing to do ever. Let's do that every day. Anything that helps us. But by the same token, it's easy, and especially on the HIT program, to just say, oh, I'm doing the 90 minutes and call it done. Don't neglect endurance, especially weekends you're not riding. One of the big debates we may get into in April as part of the topic is polarization versus sort of the sweet spot methodology. I tend to sort of mix and match a little bit based on, I think, polarization, for a quick definition. Polarization is like really, really easy and really, really hard. Kind of an 80-20 split historically, versus sweet spot, which is a lot more sort of zone 3 tempo up to threshold with a little bit of work above that, right? The big debate, or a big debate in coaching and physiology is which is more effective, and there's sort of a running thread that says if you're much more fast twitch, the polarization seems to be pretty good for you. If you're sort of an even split, then the sweet spot stuff works good. But again, individual riders, we try to write a plan that works for everybody, but obviously every rider is different. So if you're doing a lot of the HIT stuff and going, geez, coach, I feel like I'm just losing fitness, let me know and we can adapt around it. Conversely, if you're doing a lot of HIT and you feel like, gosh, I'm really not making progress on maintaining race fitness or developing that threshold fitness that's going to get me to the next level, let me know. The reason I say that is because the last part of this topic for tonight is block training. I'm in the process of writing some sort of 4 or 5 week block programs for you guys that you can pick and choose, as opposed to just the standard focus or HIT program, which are sort of longitudinal through the season. These are if you're feeling a little behind on the endurance thing, if you're feeling, you've got a big crit you care about coming up and you want to be super prepped for that. We're going to do at least 3 of these and maybe a few more. Again, if there's something you want, let me know and we can work it in. I think it's a fun project. especially if you're coming back to racing or coming back to riding a lot and maybe you've had a couple weeks off or you've been a little bit down on training, too much work, whatever. It's a great sort of kick in the butt to get going, picking and choosing. For me, it would be sort of FTP is a good jumping off point, okay? Having said that, I'm happy to add more too. And this is sort of an experiment, so I'll build them. Hopefully you guys want to use them and will provide me some feedback on, hey, that was great, or geez, I'm cracked and I'm never going to touch a bike again, okay? And we can add more if you want a TT block, et cetera. That's sort of the FTP, but okay. Racing updates. So this is actually through yesterday. I was here most of the afternoon, so I had a little extra time to kind of catch us up. Team wins for the year, we've got 3 with 27 or 28 top 10s across categories. I tried to break it down. My 3s, really, guys, time to step up. My 4s, you guys got to step up too. Unfortunately, the Masters are kicking you guys' butts. And the women are pretty much walking all over everybody. So good job, ladies. Look at the next category. Some of these end up being combined. Like if it was a Masters 3-4 race and you're a Cat 3, I put your results in the 3 side or the 35-1-2-3s. We don't have any 35-1-2-3 results because most of those races were a 3-4 race. So I would count it against a Cat 3, not necessarily a Masters Cat 3. But long story short, NCNCA, we're about 10th right now. Again, it's March, it's pretty early in the year. But we're already down 325 points. It's not necessarily a focus, but after last year, I just want you guys it on your radar a little bit more. If you haven't touched a race entry fee or a start line, it's time to start thinking about getting in the game a little bit. Red Kite, same thing. We're sitting 5th overall. Not a big deal. There's only been, 2 events? So, and Tempest Fuge is coming up in a couple weeks, and this goes through the season. So, my Masters 55-4-5 pulled a win. My Masters 45 Cat 1-2-3 in the form of Lanier got a win at Ward's Ferry, which is pretty big because it was in the 45-1-2-3, which is, I can't remember the last time we won a 45-1-2-3 race, but not since I've been coaching. Anyway, going in the right direction. It's early in the season. Again, I don't necessarily have to beat last year's numbers, but we do have a benchmark where last year was a great year on results, okay? There's one more page. Oh, no. Did I miss one? 45-1-2-3, 35. Oh, 50. My 55 guys are kicking ass except for that win. But pretty solid on performance-wise. 6 top 10s in, I don't know, there's only 6-8 races for most people, right? So overall, great job, guys. Moving on to Chico. Rather than go through every stage and every category and every this, that, and the other, long and short is schedule events starts Friday. If you are not racing Friday morning, we're going to pre-ride the gravel, probably from Paskenta, as opposed from this side. So we'll look at the finish. We'll come back across the dirt and go back across to the finish. So we get to look at the finish a couple times. We get to look at the dirt a couple times. It's sort of a tradition. It's super fun. My only ask is maybe this year you guys don't absolutely kill it across the dirt like every other year because A, I don't like getting dropped, and B, it's the day before a big road race. Going 4,000 watts is not really essential. But we'll have everything set up. Most people are staying either in Willows if they're going racing on Friday or in Corning? Oh, I got an M. Anyway, Corning on Friday night because that's about 40 minutes closer than going all the way back to Chico. Okay? Also on Saturday night, we're kind of spread around a little bit this year, it seems like, between 3 or 4 different hotels. So I will probably coordinate dinner stuff this week and get us some reservations if I can. There's not that many places to take reservations that particular weekend because there's hundreds of bike racers. But we'll give you guys a heads up on where we'll be and what we'll be doing. And everything centered on Sunday is centered at the race course. Most of you guys have already done Chico, so this is all a little bit of review. However, having said that, I did want to take a minute and actually look through 2 things. One, okay, so this is last lap of the, this is a lap of the Criterium course.
Dougie Fresh lead out?
It's the Dougie Fresh lead out version.
I know a Dougie Fresh.
I like it because, presuming I'm still connected to the internet, I like it because it covers all the basics, and it's got,
That's not Dougie. Maybe it is.
but it's a good shot. It also shows you that a committed guy, he takes this all the way to the 3rd corner. before they come around him. Careful of this edge on the right side. It gets very sloping down, right? Big wide open corners. Honestly, I could care less about 1 and 2. I care about 3, 4, and 5, and 6. Sorry. Oh, I can't just unplug it. Oh, okay. Thank God Brian's. Oh, now we lost all the stuff. Did you guys happen to watch that while I was messing around with the sound? Key corner is 5 to 6. Whatever it takes, right? I don't care about the rest of the race, right? We'll come up with a plan, but historically we haven't been very good at controlling the race at the front. So there's some other teams that have some strong riders, especially in the Cat 3 races. Let them do all the work they want. All we care about is the last 2 laps, right? Maybe the last 3 laps. I want to put this in there because he does a great lead out and drops their guy off when he gets the thing, but the guy doesn't come by until they're exiting turn 6. Actually, just before turn 6, he came by, right? Because it's a fairly short sprint out of the last corner. Be on the gas early, and really the race is to turn 3. Once you're in turn 3, it's pretty well set. If you're 10 riders back, you're not going to win, okay? Because it's going to be strung out, so it's position, position, position. Last 2 laps, all I care about. And
That's what you wish to do.
yeah, and how nice that it auto advances. The other one I wanted to look at, which is here. Okay, this is the. I don't think there's music. This is the last part of the circuit race, but it's a great illustration. It's stretched already. Okay, this is with about 2 minutes to go. It's a little bit slippery, so these guys are a little ginger. This is the 45 1, 2, 3s, I believe. So fast, experienced racers. Stretch, stretch, stretch. Big group behind them. Watch how many guys come forward at the end. Okay? And he's freewheeling, right? All it takes is commitment to stretch that field out. So I want to see if you guys have the job and the responsibility to stretch the field on the last lap, that guys aren't allowed to freewheel. Okay? Hopefully we have more than 1 or 2 guys, but right? These guys are going kind of hard, big solo. Guy thinks he's going to go off on his own. Everyone's going to react to that. But you'll see the guy that wins the stage you don't see him anywhere in the field, and this is like a 20, 25-minute video. You don't see him anywhere in this frame until the very end. And he's smart because he follows around Dean LeBerge and positions himself, right? So Pete's Coffee, strong guys, national champions. That's Dean. And you'll see the guy come up. It's actually the guy right 2 in front of Dean right now. No, this guy right here on the right, 21. 3, 2, 1. He doesn't even do a super killer sprint. There's no big acceleration. Dean's a fast guy. We talked previously about having to close that gap. So now he's 15, 20 feet behind that guy, 15 feet behind. The guy doesn't go that hard, and Dean has good acceleration, and still the guy has enough gap that he can't close it, and he's one of the fastest finishers in NorCal. So all you need is 3, 4, 5, 10 feet and a little bit of head of steam on you, and you're going to stay in front, okay? By the same token, you're not going to come out of that last corner past 7 guys and go arms in the air. So it really matters how you position on that last race. Let's see if we can not get those guys to do San Dimas because we don't care about that. It wasn't particularly, no. That's just road sound. There's one other I want to show you really quick. Yo. Yes, sir.
Which course is for the circuit?
Same as last year, I believe, which is the 2 small climbs, one short steep, and then a second little bit of a roller, and that long drop to the turns. It's sort of left turn, right turn to the finish, I believe. We'll have a chance to pre-ride, so we'll get a good look at it, but it's great pavement and really fast course.
Because the last year they had a different one the year before.
That's a different.
Right. Different yet again. That was 2 years ago, whatever. The point is, the finish is always the same because it's going to finish on that front straight, right? So it's always that right turn. If, and you're doing this race and you get to the finish and you're not in position to finish well, soft right turn, right?
Left turn. It's a totally different course.
Okay, well, we'll get a chance to pre-ride. So What matters most is if you're racing that race or the criterium or the road race and you get to the finish and it's a group finish and you're 25 riders back, don't kill yourself to try to get top 15 because it doesn't matter, right? It's all on the same time, and presumably everyone will be able to stay together. It's more important that you stay with the group than you try to go from 28th to 14th, okay? I would rather you not exert that energy at the end of a race if it's a pack finish, right? Because if you finish 14th or 28th, it doesn't matter too much. It really comes down to the TT for the most part. From an execution tactics point, you shouldn't be that far back anyway and able to contribute. But if you do find yourself that far back, don't feel like, oh, I got to get to the front, right? Save the energy for something that matters. Road race the next day, crit the next day after, TT, okay? Speaking of smart execution and creating that gap, and this was Cycling Tips did a really nice little thing about this, but this is the end of Omloop het nieuwsblad, which I think means news something. Any Dutch speakers, Mako? Nieuwsblad? Newspaper.
That's their name.
The newspaper, as opposed to het volk, the people. Okay, so hopefully this loads soon. So this was with about, obviously, 6K to go, and I don't know if it'll watch the whole thing. We'll probably just let it play while I talk the background. But big group at the end, Astana has 3 guys in here. The difference between these guys and you guys is these guys tend to keep driving all the way to the finish. Whereas your field's going to like, no one wants to commit to the hard work. Everyone wants to soft pedal and wait for the other guy to do it. Don't be that guy. Even if you think you have the wheels to win, you can still stretch it out without exerting too much energy, creating those gaps, and slowly destroying the competition. So 3 Astanas, right? When we get to the terminology, I'm going to throw out some new terms for you guys. Attack and counterattack. I know we haven't heard those terms before, so this is a great example of what they mean, right? Again, if you're at that finish, if you're in that group at the finish, even if it's a pack, do everyone a favor and keep it fast. Just keep it the front. You don't have to go map VO2 power all the time. Just keep it strung out. And even on this, you'll see there's a little bit of a lull. So it comes up in like a minute and a half, so I'll shut up now. If they don't want to do the work, yeah. Well, if you're by yourself, I mean, obviously you have to race tactically, right? But by the same token, if you have a teammate, you guys need to alternate work so that it stays fast, unless you're just a ripping-ass sprinter, which I don't think we have a ripping-ass sprinter. Tom Dillon's not here, so. What?
Just because they have 3, I mean, Van Avermaet's going to take a sprint if they go to the sprint. So.
Right, so they play it really well. And if this is history for you guys, that's great. But it's a good group with a mix of teams, right? And gorgeous Belgian countryside. Oh, Danderwinke. Which, that actually means Danderwink. Yeah, so if you have Dander, you wink at someone, and that's how they know. Danderwinke, yeah. I speak Dutch, I can't help it. Okay, so it gets interesting. So they're not going, I mean, they're still going like 27 miles an hour. But they're not killing themselves. And it's a super strong group, right? You got Dennis Stuybar, Greg Van Avermaet, Wout van Aert, Matteo Trentin. Van Avermaet has big feet. That's what he said. You think they'll block this because of the Dutch?
No, they block music.
Right, so Wout van Aert, potential winner, still willing to go to the front. Don't hide from the front just because you think you can win it. You got to earn the win, right?
The gap is also small, so it's not like
Right, well.
Yeah, it's only 32 seconds.
But even if it was a pack finish, they still wouldn't be sitting around talking about who's going to win.
Isn't also their willingness to work because this is the winning group?
Yes.
That's why I would work. Well, that's why I would work.
Sure, but not everyone's working too. Like they're not rotating; they're just kind of doing whatever, right? So is that Denik Steibar on the right there? So guy comes from way back, does a lot of effort to get there. Everyone can see him, and boom, he doesn't get very far before they're on him, right? Because he came from middle of the field, and everyone's watching, including the guy on the other side of the road. But notice who's doing the work.
It hasn't happened.
Who's going to go?
So you wait
Yeah, Sepp Van Mark for
drift to the back and then go to the front.
the Belgian national champion. I always forget his name, but he's pretty strong.
Mason.
Oliver Nason.
Oliver Naesing. So it's not a very big gap. They're calling it 30 seconds, 27 seconds.
So does Lotto Sudal have a rider in his group?
No.
So look at him come from the back, right? Everyone can see him coming. These guys all are like, oh, but nobody's reacting except Denik Steibar, right? Because he knows that guy's very strong, very dangerous. But no one wants to come through, right? Well, they're going pretty fast, but it's kind of negative at this point. Okay, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. He's got 30 yards, and everyone's looking at everybody, and he's not coming back. Okay? If they put it together and done a rotating pace line to bring him back, maybe, but they all sort of take individual pulls, et cetera, et cetera. But the key is the gap, right? They gave him that extra few yards. You have to be willing to take the risk. The trick was, and if you notice, they kind of were slowing down, and it spread out a little bit, and boom, he was gone. Anticipation. Hugely important, guys, especially in not pro racing, right? It matters in pro racing, but it matters even more for you guys because it's such an opportunity to hit it right. You only got to hit it right by a little bit to make it work. These guys are still messing around trying to figure out who's going to go get him, who's going to go get him. Yeah, he's gone. Same thing. If your guy goes, you want to be as close to the front as you can, pedaling in the draft, and just don't pull through. Again, that 2 or 3 or 4 seconds of confusion about what's going to happen next, right, helps increase his gap and keep people away. I mean, it's racing 101. Same thing, right? They let him go. He may come back, I can't remember, but it's foreshortened. That's the word foreshortened by the thing, but he's still 10 seconds up on the DREPAC or the EF education first guy. And I guarantee you, if these guys aren't willing to chase, your field's even less willing to chase, right? If you get the gap, you can take the win. Which is why maybe it's out of turn 5 in the crit. You know, you got good 30-second power, 20-second power, right? All you got to do is get out of that last corner with 10 yards and you got it won. Even if you're dying, the amount of effort you have to do to close that gap is huge. Yeah, and they would have taken 700 and something to catch him. Who does 700 watts for 2 minutes? Nobody. That's true. And a huge gap off of one really prescient, really heads-up smart attack.
zonder van het zadel te komen toch nog op dat direct spreken. Dan moet Van Marken zich nog weren, maar hij wordt nog net derde. En is het dan Stuiven die dan nog...
And it fell apart for everybody else, except those two guys. Okay. So I encourage you guys, I'm sure you already do because you're bike nerds like me, but go look for these things and find those things. Even in local races, you can see good tactics executed. Okay, going back to where we were. All right, so real quick, Thunderhill, we don't know what the course is going to be, but inevitably it's going to include the sharp uphill and a little bit longer uphill on the course. If they run it, the short sharp is here. Where's it? Off turn 3W, 4W, that's where the climb is on this backside. Depends on how they route you to the finish, but it's roughly 2 miles and 150 feet per lap, something like that. It's not very up, and it's really good pavement. We'll see that. Same thing, Pesquenta, 1,300 elevation. The big thing here is from here is where we enter the road. This is the end of the dirt section, right? 4 miles, about, figure 12 to 14 minutes for most categories across the dirt. Well, we don't know. Could be. So if it's muddy, that's a whole different kind of game. Like, that's attrition. Like the other races, people don't like riding in dirt, but mud.
It's unlikely.
Yeah.
It drains pretty well.
Yeah,
so
it's, yeah.
Drain rock anyway. Big drain rock.
From there to the top of the climb, from the edge of the dirt to the top of the climb is a mile, and then from the top of the climb is 2 miles to the finish, right? It's 2 miles downhill fast. It's a little bit of a rise to the finish. We'll get a couple good looks at it. If you're doing the 1-lap race, no feed zone. If you're doing a 2-lap race, we'll be at the feed zone for the 2nd lap. Okay, we'll cover all that stuff at the race. Same thing, right? Pre-ride the TT course if you haven't done it, and last year it got watered out, washed out, so we only did out and back. So take a look at it, right? It's really only like 5 corners, but there's some twists and turns. The reason to go pre-ride is to find out where the fast line is, right? You can go through the corner, everybody can go through the corner, but what's the fast line through the corner? So hopefully we can all go out and do a little pre-ride, talk about what the fast line is. And the crit, really, it's from 3 to 6. This part of the course is all that matters, right? Really short, a little bit bumpy, a little bit of bad pavement. So not a bad place to go if from here to the corner is probably 20 seconds, 25 seconds max, maybe. And this is shorter than it looks coming out of the last corner. So all you gotta do is come out of that with some good speed. You can pick off maybe 2 or 3 riders if you're in good position and have good wheels, but more than likely it stretches that little bit because people start to get tired and those gaps open and suddenly a foot becomes 3 feet, and closing that 3 feet thing, we don't wanna have to deal with that, so we might as well be at the front, okay? All right. Okay, so we talked at camp a little bit about what I affectionately call the team terminology project, which is trying to get everyone on the team on the same page. And part of that is for tonight, and don't worry about this camp notables, I forgot to delete that, create common training, racing, and tactics language. Okay, and there's a couple of steps to that we'll get to in a second. I just want you guys to not think about what does the term mean and what's my choice, right? There's always a choice. How does that work? We want to try to simplify that so that as you go through categories, it stays the same. In race situations, it stays the same. If we say echelon, everybody knows what we mean. If we say, rotating pace line, echelon right, et cetera, et cetera. It's a work in progress. It's not a finished product. So part of why we're here is for you guys to throw out some stuff that'll be recorded that we can go back and add. The team terminology PDF is all the training terminology, FTP, sweet spot, TSS, CTL, ATL. That exists already. I don't think there's too much to add to that probably, but I'll go back and look at it and see if there's any new terms, especially now that we have so many people on Pioneers. There may be some elements we can add in as we go so that you can use it on your own training-wise. Big things for me are some novel concepts. So I wanted to get a little more definitive in the terms and how we approach race planning. So it's not sort of, we have good pre-race meetings, but they still sort of end up being like, yeah, we should cover anything that moves, so forth and so on, as opposed to assigning roles. So we're going to try assigning roles to riders, from lead rider to road captain, And again, when terminology becomes inherent, road captain means the guy in charge on the road. It's not necessarily the leader, right? The leader's responsibility is to stay out of the wind and make the right move. The road captain, and it's a skill, right? And there's some people that are more tactical acumen, they see the race better. Those guys are the starting point, guys and gals. But ultimately, we want everyone to play all these roles. Right? Lead rider, most capable of taking the win, right? Hopefully it's their A race, it matches their ability, so forth and so on. So we're starting to dig into defining you as a rider a little bit, right? Same thing with the road captain. They're responsible for sort of herding the cats, which, as you guys know from racing, can be difficult. And they may delegate to you, like, hey, I need you to go back and find Steve because he's, having a soda at the back. Bring him forward. Sorry, Steve, I know, second place, I know. Right? And everybody else is basically there in support. It gets more complex. Hopefully the complexity creates vision and clarity. And again, this is a draft version. I really do want you guys' feedback. But for me, it's as easy as giving people roles. And you may have multiple roles in a race. You may be cover 1 and chase 1. Or maybe you're chase 3. Or maybe you're out of the chase as a responsible party and just there to contribute if you can. But my hope is that we get buy-in from you guys that the idea of having a role suits and executing against that role is worthwhile, and then being accountable for that at the end of the race. So I've changed the race planning and the race review sheets a little bit from the one that had been in the drive previously, which was really complex and had all kinds of, like, what are your goals for the race? I don't care about your goals, win. Right? So whoever's designated C1, their job is to cover the first attack. C2, cover the second attack. And again, if you guys want a different terminology or different structure, that's great.
I'm sorry, what does it mean to cover an attack?
Excellent question. What do you think it means to cover an attack?
It means, from the context, I think it means you want to join the breakaway. Like someone else attacked, then you
Right.
want to join that breakaway group.
Exactly. So, and these are the kind of things that I need feedback from you guys tonight that we can go back and integrate, right? So, cover and attack means if someone goes off the front, we're on it. And the baseline for the team is always cover, then assess, right? Well, if you're cover 1 and you're at the back of the field, you're probably not getting an A+ for the day, okay? I don't care if you come up and cover the 4th attack. If you're cover 1, you're cover 1. I mean, it's a responsibility, okay? So now we're introducing accountability a little bit more to you guys because we have so much strength, power, and talent that I think we should win everything, right? Other teams have other ideas, but who cares? Yes?
Let's say you only have 4 guys in a certain race.
Yeah.
And you got more than 4 attacks. Do the cover...
Rotates through, right? So I just built it 1, 2, 3, where it go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? With help from other guys, right? If it's 1, 2, 3, and the leader is the 4th guy, and we think that's the one that's going to go, then we want to make sure that guy's there, right? So there is room for interpretation, but the roles help set the table for the performance. Yes.
What's the difference between a chase and a cover then?
Chase is when there's already a break.
Unsuccessful cover?
Yeah, when we fail the covering and we need a chase, right? This is important though.
In a chase, you're trying to drag the rest of the pack with you.
Yeah, if they want to come with you, that's great. Yes.
That's a good question about cover. I used to have a strategy when I raced on the road that I wouldn't immediately go with a jump. I would let them get a certain number of bike lengths ahead, and then I would go really hard because what I was trying not to do was just...
Drag everybody up and have it.
Yeah,
Right.
like you say, I think that's a break. I might want to be in it, but
Right.
I don't want to just get on it and then everybody just follows me.
Right. Well, and again, that goes more towards bridging, right? A little bit of a gap, and I don't know what. Again, it's up to us to define it. I can give you guys a number and say, when it gets to 3 seconds, if we haven't covered, then we need to bridge, right? But the base rule of thumb should be, if it's a good go, we should have someone on it, okay? And again, it's part of that flow conversation, okay? I can be a dictator, but I prefer to have it be interactive. So the chase, right? If anything gets more than 10 seconds up the road, right? And another part of this, and again, work in progress, right? What's 10 seconds on the road look like? We talked about it at camp a little bit, How far up the road is a 10-second gap, and how long does it take me to close that gap, right? If you're really good at geometry, you can figure it out in your head, but on the road, you're pretty much, nose is on your stem, it's hard to do the math. But default is cover everything, right? That may serve the purpose of, as part of the team strategy, setting the table for that second attack to be good or the third attack to be good. And these are just preliminary rolls that if you guys are like, ah, it's way too confusing. But when I show you the form, hopefully it gets a little bit easier. Same thing, attack, break, right? If your job is to get in the break, your job is to get in the break, right? You don't have to be the guy that initiates the break, but you either have to cover or you need to bridge, right? Which means you just need to be attentive at riding at the front primarily, okay? Let's see what's next. So planning sheet. I tried to make it simple so there's less lines, event name, category, distance, how many people are on the reg list, what we think is going to be there. Top placing from previous years, how many teammates we had, right? If you won solo, that's good to know. If we're bringing 10 guys to the race, it probably changes the dynamic a little bit. Overview and notables, right? Simple thing, and this hopefully is something you just put out, right? It can even be the night before in a meeting, Discord, or it can be that day if it's not a team race where we do a Discord. You can sit down and just sketch it out really quickly as a group. It takes 5 minutes if everyone buys in. What's the priority of the race, right? Chico's an A, Bariani's a C, B. Most everything's a B or a C. There's only a few A races in a season, typically. What's the anticipated result? Geez, every year Bariani comes down to a pack finish. Well, so the idea of getting a break is fabulous, but everything comes down to pack finish for the last 12 years. So what do you anticipate? And these are things that giving you guys the tools to manage that on your own. Okay, so if I'm not there, if there's not someone there who's stepping up to take charge, it's really easy to go through the process. Rider roles, right? Who's a designated team leader? And there needs to be one guy that's the designated team leader. It's a little draconian, and it's a little sort of fanciful to say, like, we're going to do this, and we're going to set Steve for the win, right? But it's a starting point to get organized, as evidenced by sort of our, what's the word I want? Mediocrity at the echelon the last 2 weekends. We need to have the concepts in our head and then practice the skills on the road. Okay, so concept to reality, there's a big gap right now. We're trying to close that gap with this project, okay? Race leader, great. Who's my road captain? Okay, so it's Brandon. Cool. Next rider would be, C1, D1, B1. Again, you can have multiple roles, but you sketch it out on the thing. You say, part of it is doing that self-assessment, so you know that if I give you the C1 roll and your 20-minute power is 2 watts a kilogram, that may not be the perfect roll for you, right? So you can sort of place yourself where appropriate. But define it out. I only kept it open to 10 riders here, 9 riders here. Most races we have less than that. If you need more space, there's a space thing. Plan tactics. We're going to try to get a break. We're going to chase everything down for a sprint finish. We're going to attack on the 3rd lap, et cetera, et cetera. Those things will come with time. This isn't a fully marinated plan at this time. But when it comes to the race review, there's another sheet I need to get to that I hope is on here. Again, really easy because you're going to so you're either a 1, 2, 3, or a 4. If you're a 1, you're a guy that's going to win the race, can win the race. If you're a 2, you're a guy that can win the race, but your job is support. If you're a 3, you're strong enough, fit enough to contribute and be an asset. And if you're a 4, you're pretty much there as a training race to try to see, either you don't have the fitness or you don't have the race experience to really do much except sort of survive and hope you can contribute something, okay? These can become more defined. No one's stuck as one thing across the balance of the season either, okay? So we want to get to where everyone gets a chance to be all roles. Hopefully we can clear out the 4s, not category 4s, but 4 rankings. By the same token, you get to the end, you get a score, A, B, C, D, F. And that's the sheet I'll hopefully get to. It is a little bit of tough love, right? And it's you find most times, and they say this all the time in reviews, that if you, instead of going and giving someone a review, you ask them to review themselves. People are way harder on themselves than their manager is usually. You guys are going to be way tougher on yourselves than I am, maybe, probably. But that's a good thing, right? Ownership helps change the path moving forward. How did the team do it executing? Well, as a team, we gave ourselves a B, even though 4 guys got A's for the day, right? We just want that feedback loop. Again, 5 minutes after the race, you can get this done in 5 minutes. I may mandate that we actually have a write-out, and then it comes back to me, so we have a written record. And what 3 things did we learn from the race? Well, Andrew's not an A1. He's more of an A2, right? For me, a chase guy, someone that's going to chase, the number one guy is like a time trialist that can do fairly long pulls at fairly high intensity, right? The model is those guys that sit on the front trying to bring things back and they do 20 miles on the front at 30 miles an hour. We don't need quite that much, but if you're the lead rider, you should be the one doing the most work in the group, right? You should be the strongest at the chase. And I'm not saying that leaders aren't responsible for helping on that. It depends on what the gap is. Again, the problem with bike racing is everything's so up in the air all the time that saying it's going to go exactly this way almost never works out. But having fallback plans built in too, right? Let me see if I got that on this. No. There it is. Okay. Role accomplished, appropriate to rider, exceeded expectations, right? You come in as a 4, you end up getting first place in the race, you pretty much exceeded expectations. And they're not meant to be sort of like chew you out and be on your case. They're hopefully meant to help you get better. But accomplish the goal, asset more than a liability. I think that's a fair C. Substandards, you're a little bit more of a liability than an asset. Failed, didn't contribute, went out the back on the first corner, crashed your teammate out. These are pretty self-delineating. Nowhere to go but up.
Hey, do you have a roll called lead out 1, 2, 3,
Yeah, there is an L1, 2, 3, yes. And so having these roles, these are things we need to practice, right? So taking it from the conceptual to the reality, we need to practice because we can say, man, I want Menko to be my first lead out guy. Well, he may not be the right guy for that, A, because there's no draft, and B, because, if it doesn't go uphill, he's probably not the guy for the flats doing 400 watts, right? I'd rather have Brandon on that role. But I want Menko to be the guy to lead into the climb, right? If that's the role, and we have a climber, although it's probably him anyway, right? So again, I'm just trying to, with you guys' help, introduce a little more structure, okay? And we've kind of gotten here over the course of 2 years of sort of humming and hawing and trying to execute and somehow managed to win 50-some races last year. I would like us to win races actually against executing, or for example, and sorry, Brian, but for example, going in a race and attacking and getting your guy off the front, not recognizing there's a break up the road. Something like that, that might get you a C, right? You're still more of an asset than a liability, but barely. For example, look, he wants to kill me now. Yeah. You can edit that out if you want. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to do before we get to the calendar and the team events is actually, Andrew kicked it off by what is a cover? So in that terminology sheet, right, I'm trying to put together a list of terms, kick out some ideas, right? Attack, break, echelon, rotating pace line, sprint. What other terms hit you guys' radar as stuff that we should have some sort of definition for, right? Roulaire, time trialist, sprinter, climber. If you want, I can give you the criteria, according to somebody, of what a climber should be, right? It's no more than 2 pounds per inch of body height, right? So if you're 6 feet tall and you weigh 112 pounds, probably a good climber, right? So anything that comes to mind, please kick them out. Or send me an email if you're watching this online and there's a term that you hear but you don't understand or one that you want put in the mix, right? We talk all the time about closing gaps. Well, what does that mean, right? Lenny on Sunday at Bariani, right? I guess, I didn't see it because there's not a video so far, but I know from Lenny and from another guy what happened. He moved right and took out a guy named Roselle. Roselle hit the deck and messed up his bike and wasn't very happy at the end. Well, that may be the case that he moved right. At the same time, in my estimation, Roselle took himself out because he wasn't paying attention and didn't give himself an out because his wheels were too overlapped, right? If you don't understand what we're talking about when we're talking about riding a wheel and what that means, riding a wheel isn't, 2.5 feet back. It's on that wheel in that draft. We talked about in the echelon on Saturday, 45 degrees as a baseline because the wind may change, but all we're doing is changing the amount of the angle of attack on the echelon, right? So we'll put things like that in there. Acceleration, sprint gearing, sprint practice, anything that comes to mind if you have a term now, just throw it out. We can put it in the mix. I'll listen to this later and start defining it. Manko, any terms? Ross, any terms? Take your time, not pressure. I know it's yes.
How about out on the road
Mm-hmm.
racing? Any suggestions for something to yell out, hand signals, whatever?
That's the next iteration, which is where, we as a team, we want to have a nomenclature that's really easy. So if the call is, we want to attack at the crosswind, see you, thanks for coming. If you want to attack at the next crosswind, it should be as easy as, right, if it's turn 2, A2, we're going to attack on turn 2. I don't know how it's going to shake out yet, but my first thought is something along the lines of letter and a number. Letter being, A being attack, E being echelon, E2, echelon of the second turn. Everyone knows what to do. Nobody else knows what we're talking about, which is why I want this to make sure it's not publicly dispersed. So we go E2 and everybody goes echelon on 2. Okay? And again, I really need you guys' help because I can sit there and create this perfect little thing. I'm really good at it in my little brain. But then it goes out to the real world and you're like, shoot holes in it left and right. So yes.
So how about the role of the traditional domestique? Let's say somebody at Chico the leader loses his water bottle. And something gets bright hot, it's hot, it's sunny or whatever. So are people going to give their bottles to the leader in order to execute the plan?
I would say if it's a one-lap race and there's no feed, you're going to probably end up sharing, right? If someone runs out of water, I trust you guys are smart enough to ask each other and share, as opposed to being like, take it, just leave me on the side of the road. Go without me. But it's a good example, right? Carry a couple extra goos. If you're a domestique and your only responsibility is to take care of other riders, carry a little bit of extra food. Not necessarily an extra water bottle, but carry things that are helpful to your leader and to your other riders, right? We want that to become inherent where you guys don't even think about it. It's just an automatic. I don't need a 40-page handbook of racing, but I want the education, right? Everyone's always learning. I'm still learning after a lot of years, right? Every race there's something to learn. Okay, yes?
So with the race leader, who's looking after them, keeping them out of the wind?
Right, well, so that's a role, right? No, the road captain usually is more of a rotating person who floats, right? And again, this goes in the definition, right? In the race planning thing, you can assign a rider and say, Ross, I need to take care of Menko the whole race. Your job is to get him where he needs to go, keep him out of the wind, give him an extra goo. That's your role. Do those things, you're going to get an A. Right? Do those things and finish top 5, you're probably going to get an A+. Or maybe you're going to get a B for that. Yes, sir?
It's also the race leader kind of tells, can you cover me? Can you cover?
Yeah, and the race leader, it's incumbent on them to sort of take a leadership role because they want the result, right? You have to earn the respect of your teammates. If you just sit there and like, yeah, do this for me because I said, right? You're probably not going to make a lot of friends that way. But you also have to be willing to ask for things you need. And it's a hard lesson, and most people don't want to take that role. They'd rather sort of be a worker than take the responsibility. But same as I've said the last 2 years, we want that responsibility to come to you so you get the chance to do it. Because winning races is fun. Or having the shot to win races.
I think that's the difference between the leader and the road captain. So you can be a road captain no matter what your ability, whether you're going to lead the race or you're going to be the chosen rider or not. So you learn how to do those things. And I think once we get done with terminology, we're going to get to where you guys are really going, which is when do I do these things?
Right, and execution. First, we got to get us on the right page.
Andrew's asking, do I cover this attack? Well, what does cover look like? It depends on where in the race you are. If you're early break and you want to get in that break, but you're not the lead rider and you've got 7 miles, are you going to pedal with them or not? Like, there are decisions you have to make, and we'll get to those. So right now we're just kind of trying to figure out who you are out on the road and what should your primary responsibility.
Well, and give you things to think about, right? Instead of being like, my legs really hurt, think strategically and tactically, right? What can I do? Who needs what? What's my role today? And buy into that concept. I presume by the general nodding in the audience that there is buy-in to the idea of starting to put this together. It's not meant to be dictatorial. It's not meant to be like, this is your job and this is it and so forth. But we need more structure because we have too many chefs, right? And not enough pure execution. So again, to me, this really comes to fruition probably late this year or into next year. So this is a real learning year for us as a team. So, and it's novel for me. I've not tried to implement this to a group of 100 riders before or 50 riders before. So it's a blank sheet to some degree, and you guys' feedback is as important as anybody else's. Okay? sterlingspeed@gmail.com. Can you make it float? Review, because I know that, for example, Santa Cruz I don't think was on the focus race list, and I'm certain that Cants Hill Wente wasn't on the focus race list on the Google Doc. So it's on our list. So these races, Santa Cruz is. Okay, so races. Most likely these will stay. We may add more, right? This is 8 contractually. We're supposed to do 8 for you guys, but I like you guys, so I'm happy to let's do more. Big one obviously here, but busy. This block here is busy, right? All the way until the first part of June. We're doing a lot. So there may not be as many team rides on weekends, but daylight savings has arrived. Woohoo! So Thursdays, Tuesdays, big. Spring clothing order closed on the 21st. Pioneer order's already done. Team ride on the tanks, thanks for coming out. We had 2 team rides on Saturdays in a row that weren't previously scheduled. We sort of did it that week. Thanks for coming out. Chico, the 24th, if you're not racing the Santa Cruz crit, or you're dumb enough to do my ride and Santa Cruz, good for you. But I'm doing a ride called Heart of Darkness. It's basically Mount Madonna, Eureka Canyon, somewhere between 75 and 105 miles, depending on where you start. I'll put it on the list. You guys are invited if you want to go. I'm working on car support, but most likely it's just going to be us. And it's just an annual tradition because it's a gorgeous, beautiful, fun ride that's hard. But we also have Cats Hill, Wente Road Race. That's a busy weekend. We put 2 in there because they're both great races. I think that's it. Unless you guys have questions, comments, or needs. No? Yes. Perfect. We'll have to give large quantities of beer. Okay, I think that's it for me, unless you guys have anything you need. All right, cool. Thanks for tuning in.